You may have noticed that some of the most difficult times that we have in therapy is not when the client is presenting us with their difficulty or their problem or their issues, but rather it's when the client is upset with us, attacking or complaining about us in some way. That is where the relationship is tested and formed. The clients might be actually feeling pretty misunderstood, or like we're really not listening to them. They might be just shutting down. In those moments, and especially the words we choose and the way we say them, they matter deeply. They can be absolutely critical. So today we're going to learn a set of tools developed by Dr. David Burns called the 5 Secrets of Effective Communication. They're designed to help us connect when the client feels defensive, emotional, or distant. And the thing about these things is that they actually work. So let's start with the basics. First, let me just say them out, the 5 secrets. One is called the disarming technique. Number 2 is called empathy, which is divided into both thought empathy and feeling empathy. 3 is called inquiry. Number 4 are called I feel statements. And then number 5, Dr. Burns calls it stroking. I like to call it affirmations because stroking can be a little bit too emotional in there. But I'm going to walk you through each of these definitions with examples and therapist tests. Are you ready? Let's dive in. The first one is the disarming technique. The definition is that you are finding truth in what the other person is saying, even if you disagree, even if it seems absurd, even if it's completely wrong. One of the things about disarming technique is because the other person is actually saying it and believes it, there has to be some level of truth, and your job is to find that part, that perception that the other person has that makes it true. It's not about saying you're right and I'm wrong. It's about saying, I hear your truth, and that's what's important. So let's say the client says to you, hey, you're not even listening to me. Well, the natural knee-jerk reaction is, well, of course I'm listening. I can repeat everything you said. But no. Instead, the therapist says, oh, I got distracted. I wasn't really 100% focused on you. And that's important. I really have to be. It's extremely powerful because you're saying, I agree with you, you're right, you're valid, your point of view, and I'm not ready to argue with you. This is probably the most powerful of all the techniques. It de-escalates almost instantly. And you can use this across the board in any of your relationships. Let me give you another example. So the client says, you always think you know more than I do. You just talk to me like I'm broken. I sometimes get into that habit of talking in a way that sounds pretty cold, and I'm glad you pointed that out to me. Do you hear how, as a therapist, you're not arguing? You're admitting that there's something wrong, right? And that way, it completely deactivates the client's sense of need to defend himself. And when we find that grain of truth and validate, the emotional walls start to dissipate and lower. Now, it doesn't mean you have to agree to everything. We're not talking about agreeing. We're talking about finding some little truth in it. And respecting the reality the client is presenting to you, her emotional experience. And it demonstrates and shows that we're not there to win the battle or to correct somebody. We're just there to understand. And like I said before, done well, the disarming technique says, I'm not your opponent, I'm on your side. And that alone is enough to shift the tone of the session. The second of the 5 secrets is empathy. Now, empathy is actually two parts. We're talking about thought empathy and feeling empathy. But the idea of empathy is that you are proving to the person who you're talking to that you're actually listening. So with thought empathy, of course, you're not going to summarize, but you are going to paraphrase. And you're going to try, in other words, summarizing means you can leave out parts of it. Paraphrasing means you're trying to catch every single thought that the person was saying. Now, of course, if the person talked for 5, 10, 7 minutes, something like that, you're not going to be able to catch everything. And sometimes when there's a client who's going to be talking an awful lot and you want to use that empathy, you might have to stop and say, no, wait a minute, let me make sure that I'm hearing you right, and then let him go on. The point is you have to paraphrase it, and that would be the idea of thought empathy. But that doesn't really mean that you're listening deeply, which you're supposed to be doing in a good relationship. You also have to demonstrate that you understand the client's emotional reality, what the person is feeling. And sometimes they will say, I'm really pissed at you. You could paraphrase that. But more often than not, they're not saying exactly what they're feeling. Now, it doesn't have to be when they're angry at you, but in other situations also. So if the client says, I told my sister I needed more steaks and she ignored me. So, yeah, you told your sister that you needed space, and because she wasn't even paying attention, she didn't react in any way, you felt dismissed. And like your needs didn't matter. It's simple. It's real. And it makes the client feel seen. Another example. So the client says, I keep trying, but I feel like no one sees me. Even here, sometimes. The therapist says, sounds incredibly painful. You keep on trying and you feel ignored. And sometimes you feel like I'm doing that. Like you're doing everything you can to connect, and somehow you just feel invisible. And that must be very lonely. It's exhausting. So you see, in empathy, you're not fixing, or you're paraphrasing, but not fixing. Here, you're witnessing. You're showing that you see and hear what the client is presenting. When the client feels emotionally seen, the nervous system settles. Therapy becomes a safer place, a place of acceptance. This is shown in research, effective neuroscience, and Therapeutic Alliance. Empathetic accuracy and the ability to sense and reflect back the client's emotional experience has actually been shown to predict better client outcomes across all therapeutic modalities. Empathy is one of the strongest predictors of a positive therapeutic experience. And empathy works not because it solves problems, because it doesn't really solve the problem. Because it says you matter. I see you. I'm with you. And eventually, it says that you actually have the ability to solve your own problems. I'm just going to help you get there. The third secret of effective communication is entitled inquiry. Now, inquiry, I want to put a little bit of caveat of what you might have read or heard from Feeling Good book or website. When you do number 2 of empathy, you want to validate and see that it's actually right. So you're going to ask, did I get it right? Is that what you're feeling? That's not inquiry. That's validating the empathy because you want to make sure that you got it right. Step number 3 is inquiry, asking open-ended questions that invite more exploration, more understanding of that feeling that was going on. So if we take that situation we had where she said to you, you're not even paying attention. You say, no, I wasn't really paying attention. You can say, that happens more than once that really that feeling was really bad, feeling discouraged. But tell me more about how that feels to you. What is it like when I do that to you or when anybody does it to you? Tell me more about it. And does that happen more? In essence, if you're doing this with a loved one, for instance, which is extremely important, and I just said this to a client yesterday who's married to a woman who reportedly has bipolar disorder. Reportedly, I didn't meet her. When you're asking for inquiry, you say, tell me how that really feels. You feel like I'm a really bad person. You feel that I'm a liar and a cheat, right? But tell me more about what I do that makes you feel that way or think that way. So you're inviting more of whatever that feeling and that emotion is, more expressions of it, more instances of it. And when you're doing it in a relationship, be it therapeutic or personal, the underlying message is, I want you to tell me what hurts you. I want you to tell me how I am causing you to feel hurt. Because even though it's going to hurt me to hear that temporary emotional pain that I'm going to experience is not anywhere as important as the relationship we have between us. And that's actually the most powerful message that you can give in any sense of communication. Now let's talk about secret number 4, which Burns calls I feel statements. Of course, everybody wants to be able to express what they're feeling. It's also important in the therapeutic relationship to show that you are a human being with emotions. But it has to be done gently and honestly, and the single most important thing, that there's no blame, even implied. You shouldn't have blame even in your thought process. Some people might say, I feel like you're angry at me. There's a lot of problems with that statement. First of all, I feel like is not a feeling. It's I think you're angry at me. And the other person can say, no, I'm not angry at you. It's not really a feeling at all. I have a feeling, and you use an emotional world. I feel sad when I hear that. It's describing and putting out on the table your own emotion as it pertains to you. Nothing to do with the other person. Even if the other person is part of the situation which triggered the emotion, but it's not their emotion, and it's not their cause. It's our understanding of what we're hearing which causes the emotion. So it's important to say how you feel. And if you want to look this up, there must be thousands of explanations of I feel statements on the web or YouTube, because this concept has been around for at least 50 years. And finally, secret number 5, which Dr. Burns calls stroking. I like to call it affirmation, because it means that you're affirming the client's worth, even when they're upset at you. You are finding something honestly good and right about the person in their personality, in their essence. Something is happening right now. It's about them as a human being. In IFS, you would call this connecting with their self with a capital S. One might think, well, I hear that you're being honest with me right now. I admire that, which sounds pretty good. It's pretty close. But if a person's really analytical and says, oh, right now I am, but usually I'm not. You admire me because, well, I'm doing something special. No. You have to say that honesty, which is part of who you are, is coming out. And that's really wonderful. That you have with people is so central to who you are. And that's really important. Of course, this affirmation avoids the shame that a person might. Okay, so let's put it all together. Full clinical moment. The client says, I don't know why I bother coming here. You probably think I'm just being dramatic. Yeah, you're wondering what's the use of coming here. You're thinking that I'm probably thinking you're being over dramatic and a drama queen or something like that. And sure, I do see the drama, and I'm certainly reacting to it, but it's that you're really in pain from that. and you are feeling so put out and maybe put aside. I'm not sure. Maybe you feel ashamed. Is that right? I mean, am I reading you right? Because if I'm going to act you that way, it's pretty hard. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that's like? Okay, so here's the essence. Here's the heart of it. These 5 secrets work. I can almost guarantee, but I think they only work when they come from your real presence, when they are genuine and honest. And you can make mistakes. It's not about saying the perfect thing or taking the script or the template and using it. Yes, it's good to use all 5. When you're practicing, it's probably better to do it in order, but that's not real life. The real thing is about being emotionally available for the person. You should be precise with your words, but stay open. Stay verifying. Make sure you're with the client in an honest and complete way. And that is even when the client is hurting. Even when the client is hurting and blaming you. And it's even when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling hurt. That's still, it's those ways of communicating that opens up and brings people closer together. So, as you do some observations and role play, I want you to do a couple of things. First, use the 5 Secrets worksheet. I think there are 3 examples on it. Break down what the therapist did and what they could have done when you listen to a recorded session. Second, practice the responses out loud. Even if you can write down an interaction that happened between you and another person that didn't go the way it should have, and write down exactly what that other person said and how you responded, because that's where it is. It's not what each person said. It's your response to the person that makes or breaks the relationship. It can feel awkward, especially at first. So in your reflection journal, write about that moment, how you felt, and how the interaction caused more of a disconnection, and how you could have responded differently using the 5 secrets. I like you. You're very conscious of how you're presenting yourself, and that's a very wonderful, beautiful thing. Tell me more about how that is for you. If that feeling comes, why it happens, and does it happen in other places also?